So I finally had a chance to watch Glass Onion on Netflix. I'm such a big fan of Knives Out, so I was really looking forward to the sequel. I'm a little sad that I missed out on it while I was in theaters. I even had a couple friends who got to see it at the Toronto International Film Festival back in September, and I was extremely jealous of them. There's probably hundreds of Easter eggs in Glass Onion, if not more. This isn't really going to be a quick tally of everything you missed. Chances are I probably missed most of that stuff too. Instead, I'm just going to focus on some of the music-related elements and talk about what they might mean for the film. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Glass Onion yet. The score was composed by Nathan Johnson, who also did the score for Knives Out, and I really love how it incorporates some classical music references as well as tropes of the mystery and thriller genres. There's also some fun cameos from the music world and some really great song placements that add a lot of depth to the film. Gotta start off with the title, Glass Onion. The film takes its name from a Beatles song, and it's a really meta song that contains all these references to other Beatles songs in its lyrics, and the song also plays over the end credits of the film.
I told you about strawberry fields. You know the place where nothing is real.
Apparently, after releasing 8 albums, John Lennon was really annoyed that music critics were reading too much into the lyrics of Beatles songs, and particularly saying that some of them were promoting drugs. And this is back in the 60s, remember? Throughout the song, John Lennon says that these music critics are looking through a glass onion and thereby distorting the meaning of his lyrics. And so all of the references in the song are meant to poke fun at this. This background story also makes it a really great fit for a murder mystery, which itself is full of red herrings and misdirects. The very first music that we hear in Glass Onion is this classical piano piece that plays as a courier knocks on the governor's door to deliver a mystery box from billionaire Miles Braun. This piece is called the Little Fugue in G minor by J.S. Bach. The same piece of music later plays out of one of the puzzles contained within the mystery box. I guess you could say the Bach's Fugue is Bach's Fugue. Alright, and then we get a cameo from none other than Yo-Yo Ma to explain that.
A fugue is a beautiful musical puzzle based on just one tune. And when you layer this tune on top of itself, it starts to change and turns into a beautiful new structure.
I really love that Yo-Yo Ma gets this cameo. If anyone doesn't know who he is, he's a cello player or cellist who was a child prodigy in the 1960s and has had an extremely prolific career as a classical concert cellist. But he's also done a lot to bring the cello to new audiences and musical styles. He recorded on film soundtracks like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Memoirs of a Geisha, and founded the multicultural music organization Silkroad Ensemble. He also showed up in episodes of Arthur and Sesame Street, and some of you might have also seen his Wired episode from a couple of years ago where he answers questions about the cello from Twitter. And Yo-Yo Ma has also become really associated with J.S. Bach. He recorded all of the unaccompanied cello suites several times, performed them all at the BBC Proms in 2015. I really love those performances, by the way. He did a Tiny Desk concert with the unaccompanied cello suites, and even went to the US-Mexico border to perform them. I'm going to put a bunch of links in the description in case you want to look into anything that I just mentioned. Anyway, as a cello player myself, I grew up listening to a lot of Yo-Yo Ma, so I was really pleasantly surprised to see him in this film. And I think his role as a music educator and popularizer, and particularly that connection that he has to J.S. Bach, makes him the perfect person to describe this piece. Now, this concept of the fugue, that tune that layers on top of itself to create a new piece, is symbolic of the murder mystery that gradually reveals new information on top of itself. And it's actually embedded right in the structure of the film. Remember that opening shot that started with a fist knocking on the door and the first layer of the fugue playing underneath? The second act of the film also starts with a shot that's identically composed. And underneath, we hear the second part of the fugue where that simple tune starts to layer on top of itself. The second act of the film contains groundbreaking new reveals that shake up the premise and showcase past events in a new light. And both the visuals and the music reflect the fact that new information is being revealed with new layers. The first time we see Detective Benoit Blanc in the film, he's in the bathtub playing a game of Among Us over Zoom with 4 familiar faces.
What just happened?
Blanc, I saw you go in the engine room. You're the imposter. We all know it. Case closed.
2 of these people are Broadway legends who both sadly passed away within the last couple of years. There's Stephen Sondheim, or Steve S., a composer and lyricist probably best known for Into the Woods and Sweeney Todd, as well as writing the lyrics for West Side Story. And he also co-wrote a whodunit film in the 1970s called The Last of Sheila, which was a major inspiration for this film, Glass Onion. Angela Lansbury, or Angie, was an actress and singer with a prolific career on Broadway where she actually starred in the original production of Sweeney Todd. She later played Detective Jessica Fletcher for over a decade in the whodunit show Murder, She Wrote, which probably explains her presence in this film. As a 90s kid, I of course grew up knowing Angela Lansbury as the voice of Mrs. Potts in Disney's Beauty and the Beast. She also sang the song Beauty and the Beast in that film and apparently recorded it in a single take.
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, Beauty and the Beast.
The Among Us game is interrupted by Helen Brand, who brings her mystery box to Benoit Blanc and asks him to investigate the murder of her twin sister, Andi. She calls him the world's greatest detective, which is an honor often bestowed on Batman. Blanc then says,
I'm not Batman.
And we hear what sounds really similar to Danny Elfman's theme from the 1989 film directed by Tim Burton. Here's what we hear in Glass Onion. And here's Danny Elfman's Batman theme. The intervals are the same, and it's even in the same key, but the rhythm is slightly different, and Benoit Blanc's theme has this extra major chord at the end. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a direct reference, since it's not identical, and it also shows up in other parts of the film too. Let me know what you thought about this. Is this a valid lead or a red herring? The theme for Andi is composed of repeating, ascending triplet arpeggios played on piano. When I hear this, I immediately think of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. The music has a really haunting and ominous tone. I actually did a little bit of sleuthing myself over on Wikipedia, and apparently the Moonlight Sonata was notably described by one of Beethoven's best-known students as a ghost scene, where out of the far distance a plaintive ghostly voice sounds. And this is really fitting in the context of the film, with the reveal that Andi has actually been dead the entire time. Andi's theme plays when the other guests see her after assuming she was cut out of their lives. It plays again when Miles sees her after thinking he already killed her.
Andi.
And it plays again when Helen shows up with the envelope after everyone thought she had already been shot.
Holy shit!
When the guests arrive on Miles' private island, he's sitting on the beach playing Blackbird on what he says is Paul McCartney's guitar. This is obviously another Beatles reference, but it's also another Bach reference. Paul McCartney actually said that Blackbird was inspired by a Bach piece called Bourrée in E minor.
It was a thing by Bach, and it went like this. But I always liked this little... So years later, I then adapted it into the song Blackbird. Taking that sort of thing, you know.
As you can see from that clip, Paul McCartney plays a left-handed guitar, so either Miles was lying about this being Paul McCartney's guitar, or more likely he just got scammed. Shortly after the guests arrive, we hear the hourly
What is that?
That's the hourly dong.
Miles says he hired Phil Glass to compose this. This is pretty funny. Philip Glass is a famous minimalist composer, but it's still pretty absurd that you would hire him to compose just a single note. And his last name, of course, Glass, is related to the glass onion. And apparently this sound was actually recorded by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who starred in a couple of Rian Johnson's earlier films and has had a cameo role in every other Rian Johnson film. As a side note, people have been telling me since high school that I actually look like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and I even sometimes get comments on YouTube about this. There are quite a few references to David Bowie sprinkled throughout the film. We even see a painting of his alter ego, Ziggy Stardust, in one of the hallways, alongside fellow icons with rhyming names, Twiggy, Iggy Pop, and Biggie Smalls. And the film also includes a couple of songs from David Bowie's album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and The Spiders from Mars. The song Starman plays during the flashback where Miles meets the rest of the group at the old bar called Glass Onion. And then the song Star plays during the scene leading up to Duke's death. According to David Bowie, the character of Ziggy Stardust was meant to define the archetype Messiah rock star, who has come to Earth to bring news of a starman that will save the world ahead of an impending apocalypse. That's really simplifying things for the sake of this video, but I think there's already a clear connection to Miles' arc and how he sees himself. Miles joins the group out of nowhere and catalyzes sudden success for each failing member of the group, and he sees himself as a savior, introducing the world to clear, a sustainable energy source amid impending climate disasters. We also see this huge mural of Kanye West in kind of a messianic outfit behind the dining table. There's a bunch of shots of Miles standing right in front of it, which underscores Miles' own hubris and messianic complex. There's also this super interesting coincidence where on the cover of the David Bowie album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust is standing in front of this sign that says K West. Apparently this detail has sparked a whole theory where people believe David Bowie prophesied Kanye West as Starman. I'll post a link in the description in case that's a rabbit hole you want to go down. Maybe my favorite musical moment from this film is this string quartet in B-flat minor that plays as Helen begins smashing Miles' glass sculptures. Right at the start, we get this col legno sound that I mentioned in a previous video, where you use the wood of the bow to hit the string instead of the hair of the bow. This is a really common sound used to create tension and eeriness in horror and thriller films. And check out the pacing here. The piece starts out with these really spaced out downbeats. The piano comes in, and then Helen drops her glass, which also drops the beat. And then the frantic strings come in to escalate the pace of the scene. And even the exact times that each sculpture is smashed is strategic. The first few sculptures are smashed on beat, and then they start getting smashed more randomly to give an even further sense of breaking free. Knives Out also has a really frantic string quartet right at the opening of that film, and I love that Glass Onion continues the tradition and even places its own string quartet in a more climactic scene. The biggest payoff of the film is saved for last with the burning of the Mona Lisa in slow-mo as Mona Lisa by Nat King Cole plays underneath.
Do you smile to tempt a lover, Mona Lisa?
And the editing is fantastic here. The lyrics, "Are you warm?" right as the glass opens to let the fire consume the painting.
Are you warm? Are you real?
Cold and lonely to highlight the emptiness of Miles' empire.
Are just a cold and lonely.
And then the final Mona Lisa over Miles' screams. Glass Onion has such fantastic music, especially in the way that the music has mysteries of its own that add a lot of depth and fun to the whole murder mystery experience. I had such a blast watching Glass Onion and rewatching some scenes to put together this video. Again, I probably missed a bunch of stuff, so please let me know what else you noticed in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.